What can we do to kind of gain some control back in our life and take some of the power away from our devices and give it back to us and take back those portions of the day that we are just draining into our phones? Hey, it's Acacia. Welcome back to Reflecting Redemption Devotions. I'm happy to bring another devotional today, and this one is very practical with a very big emphasis on distractions and specifically screen time, specifically cell phone use, which is just like the plague of our society. It's rampant. It's everywhere. It's everybody. I've thought a lot about it and how much time I devote to this one little device and how much power I've given it over my life. When it rings, I run. When it dings, I stop, drop, and check my phone. When any noise or little red notification shows up, I have to click, I have to tap, I have to touch, and especially venturing into doing some social media content, it can become extremely consuming, checking all the time, and it can really set up an idol in your life if you're not careful. So there's this dilemma because screens keep us connected. They bring positive things to us. They connect us in a way that we've never been connected before. There are platforms, forums, you can Google anything that you need to know. It's extremely helpful and relevant. It's every bit of entertainment you could ever want. Music, with that comes some good things. There's Christian music, there's the gospel being shared in different ways, there's scripture, there's connection with your Bible apps and things like that. There's commentaries and devotions and videos like this, and all of those are wonderful and have their place, and it's an extremely wonderful benefit that we have of living in the modern era. But at the same time, we are chained to these devices, and I'm just gonna say not all of our ventures on our phones are for the purpose of holiness and godliness and learning about the Lord and growing in our faith. That might take up maybe 20% of it, but probably 80% is just mindless entertainment, checking on things that really we don't have any business checking on, just constantly scrolling social media, looking for affirmation, different variety of things like that. So obviously there are good things and bad things about social media, cell phones, devices. You know all of this, but the heart of it is, what can we do about it? What can we do to kind of gain some control back in our life and take some of the power away from our devices and give it back to us and take back those portions of the day that we are just draining into our phones? So I have 5 helpful tips for you today to help you get a little bit of control back over your screen time. But I must say, out of all these tips, the only thing that's actually going to work is just disciplining yourself, making a conscious decision to follow through and to not let your phone be the end all and be all of your life. It all comes down to us. And some days I'm great at it and some days I fail at it. But either way, these are 5 things that can help you be more mindful and more conscious of your screen time. So the first thing that I have, and you already know, is to set timers on your device, on your apps, on the things that you spend the most time on. I have a 45-minute timer set on Facebook. I really don't spend a ton of time on Instagram because I still don't quite understand it, but like 30 minutes, whatever. You can go into your settings and set a timer on anything. Maybe you play too many games, or maybe you watch too much YouTube or too many podcasts, whatever. Just go in, set your timers, and it'll give you a notification when the time that you think is excessive for you has passed. So you can look at that. And your phone also gives you weekly screen time reports and lets you know how long you've spent on your device. And so when it starts to get upwards of like however many hours may or may not be comfortable to you, it's something that you just need to stop and think about. Think about what you're using it for and if it's absolutely necessary, and then go from that point and decide what you want to do. But use those notifications well and use them as knowledge to know, like, oh wow, 45 minutes on Facebook feels like nothing to me, which means I'm fully absorbed. Or, okay, by 11 o'clock, usually for me, by like 11 o'clock at night, I get like a 5-minute warning on Facebook. And I'm like, okay, that's not terrible that, maybe I've spent about 40 minutes throughout the day. But if you have just sat down on Facebook and you've already got the notification before the day has begun, that's happened to me before. It's like, oh, that's bad. We should definitely work on that habit. But it's something to think about, is setting some timers and some boundaries. So I heard this on the Finding Joy in Your Home podcast, and this is the second tip. It is to have a golden hour every day where you don't touch your phone. So from 8 to 9 p.m., maybe that's family time, or from 6 to 7 a.m., maybe that's Bible time. You can extend it to different times during the day, but have a dedicated time where your phone goes in your room, in a drawer, something like that. Now, I know probably you're thinking, what about emergencies? What if somebody needs me? I wear my Fitbit so that it will notify me if I'm getting a call. And if it's my husband or a family member, then I will go and answer it or check it. But most of the time, you can do this and it won't harm anything. So walk away from it for an hour a day. And the whole concept that was on the podcast was an hour a day, 1 day a week, 1 week a year that you go without your phone. So an hour a day, yes. 1 day out of the week, I think, is a really good thing. I haven't got to that point yet. I try on Sundays sometimes, but it's never completely consistent. So I've kind of dropped off of that. The 1 week out of the year, I don't think I could do, but I have the next tip that I'm going to give you might make it possible. So the third thing that I would say to try and do is use your phone as just a phone. So this could be the key to helping break some of those ugly screen time habits, or to spending an entire week without being wrapped in your device. So that means take a week and or a day or an hour, take some time and don't access any of your apps except for your phone and messages. So use it as a phone used to be used to make calls, and then we'll go, 2000s era to send text messages, because that's a major way of communication. So use it only to answer calls and messages, and that will cut out a ton of screen time, because think of how many calls you get through the day and how many messages. Unless you're a teenager, you're probably not just texting constantly. I texted constantly as a teenager. I thought my thumbs might fall off some days. But now as an adult, there's not as much need or want to text all the time. So treat your phone as just a phone, not as a device for reading, watching, entertainment, everything else under the sun. Just use it as a phone. And then that will limit the time that you are on your screen. An obvious one, number 4, don't bring your phone to meal times. That's a great time of day to leave it behind, sit it in your bedroom, put it in a safe place, and just take 30 minutes and eat a meal with your family without the distraction of a phone, because you're going to miss these times when you're all gathered around the kitchen table. Inevitably, kids grow up and life changes. So take as many opportunities as you can to be present with your family. Number 5, my last tip would be replace screen time with something else that you really enjoy. So maybe you enjoy reading, writing, gardening, being outside, taking a walk, anything. I don't know what you enjoy personally. Those are some of the things that I enjoy. So take away the screens and the AirPods and all the things and just do that instead. So I've recently been trying to replace my scrolling time that I get around 2:30 in the day. I usually things slow down. It's about 2:30 and I start doing a bit of a scroll for about 10-15 minutes. But instead of doing that, I'm trying to replace it with reading instead. So it's 2 goals at one time: less screen time and more time reading, which is something that I've been working on, and not an audiobook and not a podcast, but actually using my eyes to read. So that's something that I've been trying to do, and maybe it'll work for you. Use the replacement method. Maybe you're not just sitting there staring at the wall, but you're doing something else that you're interested in instead of just scrolling your phone. All right, so those are some tips to help you get off screens and just to remember why we don't need to be absorbed all the time. the screens and the socials and all the things are a cyber world that is pretty cool, that humans have created a place and a space for interaction and some really neat stuff. But at the same time, the real physical world that we live in is here. And wouldn't you prefer a world where people smile at each other at the grocery store, where people interact with each other at the post office, and where people were actually social and acknowledging other people around them, where we're cognizant of our world and not absorbed in this little box that we hold? Anyway, it's just some thoughts and it will really help you. I think it helps mentally, physically, it helps everything when you're a little more disconnected from the screens. Some other things you can try are like the 1,000-hour outside challenge. You can get the app for that and track it, but then put your phone down while you're outside. So there's a good one that you can do. There's all kinds of challenges for less screen time and things like that. So something to consider if you're really wanting to cut back on screens this year and be a little more present and in the moment. But that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a wonderfully blessed day, and I pray that you will come back again next week. Subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you as a viewer, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye.